most amazing artist. I hope you're having an amazing day today. We are starting a brand new project. And for this project, we are going to be focusing on the book Old Bear by Kevin Hanks. I did a read aloud of it on my YouTube channel, so if you want, I definitely recommend going and checking it out so you are ready and prepared for this lesson. Today, we are going to be making the background of our artwork, and we're going to do something called a leaf rubbing. This is where you are going to go and collect some leaves. Any leaves will do. Mine were a little bit wet this morning, so what I had to do is I had to dry them off. Wet leaves will not work. They need to be 100% dry. And you can collect big leaves, small leaves, leaves of different shapes and designs. Inside you can see all those little lines. You can choose whatever leaves stick out to you. And we're going to take something like an oil pastel, or you could use a crayon that does not have the wrapper on it, because to do a rubbing, we're going to be using the side of this oil pastel or crayon. You could use a crayon too. And we are going to make impressions of these leaves onto our paper, and that's going to be our background for our old bear. So to get started on our background today, you're going to need a brand new piece of white paper. You're going to need to collect some leaves. You will need a brown oil pastel or crayon that does not have the wrapper on it. And I like to work with a messy mat under my artwork so that I don't get my table all messy. There we go, Miss M. And then we're going to take a pencil, because we have to write our name, because this is a brand new piece of paper. We need to write our name and then flip it over. So now our name is on the back. Once your name is on the back with a pencil, we're ready to get started. For a rubbing to work, we need something that has texture. That is the way something feels, or the way that something looks like it feels. Like an artist could be making a portrait and they could paint hair and it might look like it has a soft texture, but when you actually touch it, it just feels like paint on a canvas. So artists often like to use texture to make their artwork look more interesting and realistic. For us, we are going to be using a leaf, like I said earlier, and we're going to use the back of the leaf, because that's the part of the leaf that has the most texture. If you take your leaf and you rub your finger across it, you should feel little tiny bumps, and that is where the veins of our leaves are. So we need something with texture to make a rubbing. And for us, we are using leaves that we collected outside. So to make our rubbing, we are actually going to take our leaf, whichever one you want to start with, and you can start anywhere on your paper. We are going to fill up this whole paper with rubbings, and we're actually going to put our leaf under our paper. So I just set my leaf down, and I want to feel with my other hand where my leaf is, because we want it to stay in place. So you can't see it, but when you start doing your leaf, you'll be able to feel that texture under your paper, and we want to kind of hold it in place to the best of your ability. This might take a couple practices, and you might not get it on your first try, and that's okay, but we just need to keep on going and never give up. If the first one doesn't work out, that's okay. We're gonna make a lot of rubbings on this paper, so just try your best and have fun. So I can feel where my leaf is right now. If you forget, you can always just pick up your paper and see where your leaf is. And we're gonna take the side of our brown oil pastel or crayon, if you're using a crayon, and we are going to start rubbing on our paper. So when I say rubbing, I just mean using the side of your oil pastel and going back and forth on your paper where your leaf is underneath. And I don't know if you can see, but you can start seeing the leaf shape up here, and you can see that texture from the veins on our leaves showing up. Now, since this is an oil pastel, it's pretty soft, so I'm not pressing down that hard. You don't really need to if you're using an oil pastel. If you're doing this at home and you're using a crayon, you might have to press down a little bit harder. But as you can see, I'm holding my paper in place. We don't want it to move around because then our leaf will look kind of blurry, and we want it to be nice and clear. So with my other hand that's not doing the rubbing, I'm holding my paper down, and I'm going over this a couple of times. We don't need to go over it too many times, just enough to where you can see that beautiful leaf shape and you can see the veins of our leaf. So that is one rubbing. Now I still have a lot of white space, and our goal today is to cover up most of that white space. So I want to switch to a new leaf because I am interested to see what these ones will look like under my paper after we do the rubbing. And I'm going to choose another position. I'll just set it down, and then I'll put my paper on top, and I want to make sure that I have my leaf and I can feel it under my paper. With my hand that's not doing the rubbing, I'm going to hold my paper down, and my other hand is going to take the side of my oil pastel and start rubbing onto that leaf. And there it is. I was a little bit confused. I thought my leaf was up here, but nothing was showing up. So what I did was I just moved my oil pastel down a little bit, and I found where my leaf is because you start to see that shape show up. And I'm just gonna go over it a couple times. We don't need to do it that much. If we go over it too many times, then this oil pastel will start to smear and you won't be able to see your leaf shape that well anymore. Okay, so I'm ready to do another one, and let's choose this one. And I'm thinking of how I'm placing these leaves too. So both of these ones are pointing towards the top of my paper. So now maybe I want to take this leaf and I want to have it pointing towards the bottom of my paper. So you can play around with the direction that your leaf is pointing as well. So I just laid it down. I'm going to lay my piece of paper down on top, feel where my leaf is. I think it's right here. I'm going to hold my paper down, take the side of my oil pastel, and I'm going to start rubbing. Do I need to press down very hard if I'm using an oil pastel? No, don't press down too hard. We don't want to make it too dark to where you can't really see that leaf. I'm just going across my paper pretty gently, almost like how we use a paintbrush. She's just gliding across our paper gently. Okay, so there are 3 leaf rubbings, but I gotta fill up most of this paper with my leaves. So I'm gonna go ahead and speed this part up because I think you guys are catching on, and I'll be right back to show you what it looks like. So I'm almost done here, but I want to tell you 2 things. The first thing is we are not overlapping these leaves. That means you don't need to do a leaf rubbing on top of each other. If you do that, it's gonna get really blurry and a little bit confusing, and you won't be able to see your leaf shapes that well. So just put your leaves right next to each other. We are not overlapping these leaves. And it's good to leave a little bit of space in between your leaves as well. I don't know if you noticed during that time lapse, but I had some empty spaces on like the corners and the edges. And what I thought would be a good idea is, instead of using my entire leaf for a rubbing, because I kind of am running out of room in some of those smaller areas, I could just do half of a leaf. So I'm just gonna put my leaf under halfway because I want to fill up this white space up here, and I'm gonna hold it in place, and that way I can fill up that space without overlapping my leaves. So you can just do half of a leaf on the edges if you want to. That's what I kind of did in the corners. And down here, I just did a little bit of my leaf in those smaller areas to fill up that space. Now, as you can see, I do still have some white space, and that's okay. We want the majority of this paper to be covered in your rubbings, and next week we're actually going to use watercolor and paint the rest of the background. So if you have a little bit of white space showing, that is a-okay, but we need to at least try our best to fill up most of this space with our leaves. But we are not overlapping, so some of these areas I have to leave white, because if I was going to put a leaf right here, then this leaf would be overlapping onto this leaf and that leaf, and then we won't be able to see our leaf shapes that well. So try your best to fill up your paper. It's okay if you leave some white spots, no big deal. And when you fill up your whole paper, then you are done for today. I hope you guys have a lot of fun creating these beautiful leaf rubbings. I can't wait to see how they turn out. I know they're going to be amazing because you guys are amazing. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.